What's up, guys? It's your boy Caleb here, and I'm bringing you a video today. I want to talk about something that really had me fired up last night. Uh, I watched the BCS selection show, and it's a joke. I've been a proponent for the BCS ever since they've had it, and the main reason why is because the BCS's job is to get the two best teams in the country to play for the national championship. And for the most part, they've done that, with the exception of 2004 when Auburn went undefeated. I think it was 2004 when Auburn went undefeated and did get to play for the national championship. But almost every other year, it works itself out where you've got either two teams at the end of the year that are undefeated, or you have three, but then you have one like Boise who, let's not kid ourselves, they don't really deserve a shot, although this year that wasn't an issue. But this year, there was a little bit of debate about who should play for the national championship because you had LSU, who went undefeated, and they're clearly the best team in the country. And then number two, you've got Alabama, and at number three, you've got Oklahoma State. And both teams made really good cases on why they should play for the national championship. Alabama already had their shot, lost to LSU at home in overtime. So a lot of people say, hey, Alabama had their shot, let Oklahoma State try. But Oklahoma State had a terrible loss to Iowa State on the road. And I know a lot of that comes after the time when their head women's basketball coach died in a plane crash, and I understand all that. But the polls don't take that into effect. And if you look at what team has the worst loss, it's clearly Oklahoma State. They had no business losing to Iowa State on the road. So in the end, I think that they got the teams right, LSU and Alabama. I'm an SEC guy. I'm a South Carolina fan. I'm a little biased for the SEC, but I think if you step back and look objectively at it, those are the two best teams. Oklahoma State's defense is in the hundreds. LSU would destroy them. I have no doubt about that. LSU would destroy them. And I do think LSU will beat Alabama again, but that's not where the problem came to me last night. The problem with the BCS is, there's two things with the problem with the BCS. Virginia Tech has no business being in a BCS game. They're going to be playing Michigan in the Sugar Bowl. Michigan, I can live with that. Virginia Tech, absolutely not. And then my other issue is West Virginia. And here's why. The BCS needs to get rid of automatic conference qualifiers because they are destroying the integrity of these games. There were 4 teams in the top 10 of the final BCS rankings that did not make a BCS game, South Carolina being one of them. And I'm not saying that South Carolina should have been in a BCS game, because Arkansas should have been in a BCS game over them, because South Carolina lost to Arkansas. And I don't know if Arkansas deserved to be one. And I know there's rules that you can't have more than 2 teams from one conference unless crazy things happen. Like if Georgia would have beaten LSU, they would have obviously gone to a BCS game, and then you probably still would have had Alabama and LSU play for the national championship. But here's the problem. Virginia Tech is the game. You can look at that team. That is the game plan if you want to make it to a BCS game. And that game plan is to simply play terrible teams and win them all. Virginia Tech lost 2 games this year. They lost to Clemson twice. Both of them were blowouts. But what happened was they lost to Clemson early enough in the season that they could still bounce back, and they won all their games, and they ended up making it to number 5 in the BCS standings. That is a complete joke. And what happened was Clemson finished 9-3 the regular season. They lost their last couple games, and they were on a roll. They were 8-0 at the beginning of the year. But what happened was they lost a couple, so they moved down in the rankings. Virginia Tech was complete opposite. So what we had happen was when you had Clemson play Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game, Virginia Tech had moved up high enough in the rankings that it did not matter how bad they lost to Clemson. They were so high up that they did not drop below the top 14, which is where you need to be in if you want to make it to a BCS game. That is a complete joke. Virginia Tech has a better record than Clemson overall, and they're not even representing their conference in their BCS game. That's an automatic qualifier. You've got Clemson playing a West Virginia team, who I'll talk about West Virginia in a minute. If you're going to go off strictly rankings, Virginia Tech should be above Clemson, and that's what all these things are, is rankings. You have Virginia Tech moved up so high that it didn't matter how bad that they lost. They're not going to move down below number 14, so they still get the chance to play in a BCS game. So teams out there, if you want to make it to a BCS game, schedule all the cupcakes you can and just win them all. But the problem is when you play in a conference like the SEC, like the Pac-12, like the Big 12, 10, 8, whatever number they've got after their name now, that is not an option because you've got Oklahoma State, you've got to play Baylor. I'm not sure if they play Baylor this year or not, but you got Baylor in your conference. Then out there in the Pac-12, you've got Oregon, Stanford, Southern Cal, although I know they're not eligible this year. And then in the SEC, heck, look at the West. You've got LSU, Alabama, and Arkansas. That's a pretty good West. And then in the East, you've got South Carolina and Georgia. Both those teams had 10-win seasons. You cannot do that. West Virginia. This is another issue I have with the BCS. How in the world does the Big East deserve an automatic qualifier? Somebody please justify that to me. They're ranked number 23 in the final BCS standings. And the way they determined whether they were going to go to a BCS game or not was because there was a three-way tie, and whichever team had the higher ranking in the final standings got to go. That is a complete joke. The BCS needs to get rid of automatic qualifiers and just take the best teams possible. Clemson will probably destroy West Virginia. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say destroy, but they put it on a Virginia Tech team, and West Virginia, I talk about how bad the ACC is. The Big East is even worse. That conference has no business having an automatic qualifier. And what you have here is you have two teams, Virginia Tech and West Virginia, taking up BCS spots when they are not deserving. And that is the biggest problem I have with this. I don't think South Carolina deserves to go to a BCS game. But you take out those two teams, they can possibly get in there. Kansas State might have deserved a BCS game. Arkansas, but no, they're going to play in the Cotton Bowl because you've got two teams taking up spots when they don't really deserve it. And I think that's what makes fans aggravated the most is, do you really want to watch Clemson, Virginia Tech? Clemson, West Virginia. Do you really want to watch Virginia Tech, Michigan? These games, you've got a chance to have a good game, but is the ACC and Big East matchup, is that really what you want to see? Or would you rather see a Clemson who has a pretty high-powered offense against an Arkansas who has a pretty high-powered offense? Or would you rather see a Michigan against a South Carolina or a Michigan against a Kansas State? There's so many better matchups that they could have, but they lock themselves in by having automatic qualifiers for each conference. So they need to get rid of that. So that's one way you can fix the BCS. Get rid of automatic qualifiers for your conference and just make it about the best teams. We make college football too hard. We try to say, oh, well, so-and-so deserves it because they won their conference. Why? Why do they deserve it because they won their conference? What happens if their conference is terrible, i.e. Big East? People don't want to see teams that back their way in like a West Virginia. We want to see teams that are good, that play good ball. And that's what you want in these bowl games. You want good competitive matchups. So the one thing you can do is get rid of automatic qualifiers for your conference. The second thing, get rid of the ranking. Virginia Tech, because they're ranked number 5, they're ranked so high that even though they lost to Clemson in the ACC championship game, they still didn't fall out of the top 14, and they still get a BCS game. I know the BCS doesn't come out until I think week 6. Push that even back. Push that week 7. Push that week 8. Because by that time in the year, you truly, truly know what your best teams in the country are. And you don't run into an issue of where somebody just keeps beating bad teams and they keep moving up because other teams keep losing. And then at the end of the year, they have a terrible game, but yet they don't drop out of the top 14. And what's funny is generally the people that pick these bowls and the computers and the rankings, they generally remember your last game. Well, their last game, Virginia Tech got destroyed in the championship game. But you know what? It doesn't matter because they were so highly ranked that it really doesn't matter. And they can still back their way into the Sugar Bowl, which I just find comical. So that's my little rant about the BCS. I love college football. I think it's the best sport in my opinion. It's the best time of year, August through January. And just like everybody else, I pull for South Carolina and I'm diehard and I watch them. But I also like watching other games, and I want to see the best matchups. And I don't feel like the BCS in its current state, having automatic qualifiers for your conference, provide the best matchups. I do not want to see West Virginia in a BCS game. I do not want to see Virginia Tech in a BCS game. Stanford, Oklahoma State for the Fiesta Bowl, I think that'll be a good game. Wisconsin, Oregon in the Rose Bowl, I think that'll be a good game. Of course, the National Championship game, Alabama, LSU, I think that'll be a good game as well. But you've got those two games out there. You're taking up 2 spots for teams that probably deserve it a little more than they do, but you handcuff yourself. I don't know if I necessarily want a playoff because I think there's issues with that as well, but they need to tweak this system. I'm not sure when the deal for the BCS, I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but if it's going to last, heck, even one more year, which I know it will, change it. Get rid of the automatic qualifying conferences because that's ruining the integrity of these games. Nobody wants to watch Virginia Tech play Michigan. I got a feeling Michigan will probably win that game fairly handily. And I got a feeling Clemson will probably beat West Virginia fairly handily as well because, heck, they're 9-3. They're 9-3. And they're playing a terrible conference. So that's my rant on the BCS. Take it for what it's worth. It just kind of aggravated me because I do like football so much and I do want to see the best matchups. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll put a link in the description. Me and my buddy at J. Will, we do Carolina videos, previews for upcoming games and whatnot, and those go on his channel. I'll put a link down in the description. You can hop on over there, watch those, tell him I sent you, and I'm out.